What is up, harvesters? Welcome back to the returning viewers, and if you're brand new here, welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. So today I want to talk to you guys about how to get those bucks on your property in the daylight. So there's a lot of steps of how to do this. There's a lot of different things we can do. I'm going to go through 7 of them, and I'm going to rank them 2 ways. 1, how difficult they are to do, and 2, what the attractiveness is once you complete them. So there's going to be some of these where you get more bang for your buck, and that is what we're going to talk about in this video. So let's get into it. So I've been right there with you guys. I've been going through all of my cam pics, and of course, middle of the night walks in the biggest buck I have on camera throughout all of the cameras I have. Well, the problem is that midnight buck is coming from so far away that he is not calling your property home. That's why he's getting there in the middle of the night, because it takes him so long to get there. So first of all, don't set your hopes on that guy. Your best bet to hunt him is going to end up being during the rut when he's cruising, and maybe he'll wander through your property during the daytime. That's why those all-day sits during the rut are important. Now, what can we do to just make him make your property home? That's where I'm going to get into these 7 tips. Now, the first thing on the list is a high quality food plot. Now, if you're on public property and you don't have the opportunity to put in food plots, you're looking for what they're using as their high quality food source. So once you figure out where they're feeding, everything else kind of relates to this. So you want to create that on your property. You want to put that high quality food source in. So how do we do that? What is that? So first of all, we need to have fall focused food. Who cares what they were eating all summer long? So we achieve this by late planted brassicas, late planted soybeans, and we typically want to plant forage soybeans. That is a soybean that is going to produce more leafy green than beans themselves, because we're not harvesting these crops. Now, if you find yourself in a pinch, go ahead, get whatever soybeans you can get out there, but forage are the best. I also love planting forage peas for the same reason. Now, peas are just so sweet. They're so good earlier in the season. Plus, they do create a lot of leafy greens for the deer as well. But I do like to plant those with those soybeans as well, because those soybeans hold up a little bit better into the colder months. Now, the other thing I touched on briefly here was the brassicas. So brassicas are great, but you need to plant those by themselves. You don't want those with all these other things, because brassicas take a long time to get going. So I love planting half a plot in peas and beans and half a plot in brassicas. That way you don't have them competing with each other, and they're desirable at different times through the fall hunting season. Now, the last thing on the list is going to be your cereal grains. I love using winter rye, either just in a food plot that gets a ton of browse pressure, or if you have failed spots in a food plot, you can throw some winter rye down in there to get some late season growth quickly, because that stuff will grow when it's very cold outside, and it'll actually green up early in the spring for you as well. You guys want to get these high quality food plots in there. This is what's going to base all of the other movement the deer do on your property, and it's going to be that hub. Now, one last thing I want to touch on is the higher quality this food plot will be dependent on the quality of soil. So make sure you're getting those soil amendments in there. Get a soil test, get your pH right. If you need to throw some lime in there, get it fertilized to get that correct as well. Now, the other side of this is, if you do what I do, you can just go into a 3-crop rotation that does this all naturally. It puts so much organic material into your soil that your food plots are just super, super desirable. I have other videos on how to do that specifically. If you guys are interested, go check that out. Putting in food plots is a ton of work, so I'm giving this a 3 out of 3, as in it is very hard, it's very difficult, but I am also going to give it a 3 out of 3 for how attractive it is. If you guys have good food plots on your property, even if you have bad food plots on your property and you're in like the big woods where there are no other good food sources, even a bad food plot will be a top attraction for your deer herd in areas where they don't have high quality food sources. So the second thing on the list is safe bedding areas. So we want to create bedding areas on our property, because essentially the deer are going to relate between food and bedding and back and forth all day long. Now, at night, yeah, they go off wherever, who knows where they go. This is why you get those midnight pictures of that big buck, because he wandered off miles away from his home, but as soon as he gets light out, he heads back to his home. So what we want to do is get these nice bedding areas in there. So I am in favor of putting in more smaller pockets of bedding because it helps deal with your different deer family groups rather than putting in like one big massive bedding area in the back of your property. So if you guys have these high quality food sources on your property, the bedding area you put closest to that, that's going to be where all your does and fawns bed. Especially if this is the best big food attraction in your area. Those does and fawns are going to find that they're pretty lazy. Those kids don't want to walk around the block. You know, you're take them for a walk, you got to pick their bike up and carry it the rest of the way home. That first bedding area is where those does and fawns are going to bed so that they can get to that food plot. Well, great, we're trying to get these big bucks on our property. Well, this means you need multiple bedding areas. So yeah, that first one, does and fawns. Now we need to wander back into the deep, dark back corner of your property, and we want to start putting in pockets of bedding. Now, while we put these in, you got to keep in mind that bucks are also not exactly going to want to be on top of each other during this time of the year. So you need to put pockets of bedding like I've been saying. So I like to put in, say, 100-yard diameter. It can be smaller than that depending on the natural habitat and natural density of your property. But you want to put in these like 100-yard diameter pockets of bedding by getting down high canopy trees, by plugging in other things like shrubs, red osier, dogwood, whatever. You're looking to create the densest, thickest cover from about ground level to about 10 feet high. You don't need it any taller than that. Anything taller than that's just a complete waste. Now, don't make this like a cattle pen. You do want it to be so they can easily get in and out of it. You just want it thickened up. So as you create these pockets of bedding throughout your property, just keep in mind that the more of these you make, you also don't want to disturb them. So make sure these are in that deep, dark back corner of your property. The biggest buck on your property wants to be on the area of your property that is never touched by humans. So that's where he will bed and he will travel to food. So those does and fawns being close to the food, bucks are more willing to travel a little further to get to a food source. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention in this video, but I have in others, is you can create multiple food locations. So even if this is your big food plot, if you have like a little side food plot over here, he may relate to that little kill plot and let the does and fawns just be busy and noisy over on the big one. So great way to get him out of that secluded bedding area to a little secluded food plot that's maybe easier for you to access into that trail that heads into that small one versus trying to get him all the way to that big one. You might notice he doesn't get onto that big food plot until after dark, even if he is only bedded down maybe a couple 100 yards away on your property. So, all right, well, how are we going to rank these? Well, once again, putting in bedding areas is very hard. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. So it is going to be a 3 out of 3 for how hard it is to do. And it's going to be a 2 out of 3 for how attractive it is. Now, quality bedding is very attractive, but if you don't have quality food adjacent to it or in the vicinity, you can create a bedding area, the best bedding area ever, and if there's no food nearby, they're not going to use it. And the other side of this is just because you as the human create a bedding area does not mean that the deer are going to use that, because there's a lot of other things that come into play as far as topography, the way the wind is blowing. When bucks bed down, they really like to be able to smell from the direction that they're going to travel to once it gets dark out. So you essentially need the wind to be blowing from your food plot to his bedding area all day long. This is also where thermals come in. He may want to bed down higher than the food source, so the thermals travel up to him in his bedding area. He will sniff that all day long to make sure there's nothing down towards his food source. As soon as the day shifts, so as soon as the thermals start coming down or the wind shifts, that's when he's going to get up and he's going to head toward where he just got all of that scent data. So once he stops receiving scent data, he heads down to that food source. So there's a lot more in play here than just, I created a bedding area, now all the big bucks in the whole county are going to bed right here. That's why I say it's a 2 out of 3 of attractiveness, because there's just so much more going on, other variables. Maybe we can talk about all that in another video. All right, so the third thing I want to talk about is mock scrapes and trail cameras. So when you have a food area and you have a bedding area, I don't like to sit on the attractions, mostly because if you're sitting on them, the deer hang out in those areas for a while, and you always risk that the wind swirls or something, paints your scent right on them, and now you spooked them out of the area. They're not coming back for a while. So I like to sit on that line of movement between the attractions. The deer walks past you, you shoot it or you don't, and it moves on, and you don't risk being in the same chunk of the woods as each other for as long. Now, this is a great place where you build a funnel. I have other videos on how to do that. Go check those out. But it's also where you want to put a mock scrape and a trail camera, because it's where these deer are going to be moving through almost every day. And this is where you're going to get a good census of what's on your property. You're going to see which ones are your daytime bucks, which ones are your nighttime bucks. And so get that mock scrape in there. Great opportunity to have a shot opportunity as well, because they're going to stop at that scrape in front of you. And well, of course, we need to get the trail cam on there. Now, the trail cam itself isn't very attractive, but we got to throw it in here because our sponsor for this video is Guard Pro trail cameras. You know, go check them out, guys. I've been using them since 2020. They've been around since 2019. They're a high quality camera. They continue to innovate. I've actually seen them innovate faster than some of the big names you see at the box stores. Guys, I used to use all those big name box store brands, and I was just so dissatisfied with them. Once I found these cameras, I have not turned back since. Luckily, they then decided to sponsor me sometime later. So if you guys are interested, head down into the description below. There is a discount code for you down there, 15% off. It will save you money on every single thing on their website. So guys, go check that out. Save some money, get some good quality trail cameras in the woods. All right, so let's rank mock scrapes. So I would say they are a 1 out of 3. They are very easy to install. Now I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3 for attractiveness. Now this is not going to pull deer from your neighbor's property, from the county over, for them to come sniff and lick this stick. But what is going to happen is if they are in the vicinity of the woods, they will choose this trail to walk down instead of the one over there or the one over there. So this is how we can really help to create that funnel right in front of your stand. Plus it's going to make them stop, because even the does and fawns will stop to sniff that stick, which gives you an opportunity for them to stop and a broadside shot. So great thing to get in the woods. These are probably the biggest bang for your buck as far as they're super easy to put in. They are really awesome. Even if there's nothing else on your property that's attractive, put one of these in front of every one of your stand locations, and you're really going to see the benefit of putting the deer exactly where you want them to go. Number 4. So the fourth thing on the list is a water hole. Now these go great with those mock scrapes. Wherever you're putting those mock scrapes, consider putting water holes. Now, yeah, if you guys got 12 mock scrapes out there, you're gonna break your back putting in 12 water holes. But if you have a good funnel location between food and bedding, great place to have not only a mock scrape, but also a water hole. Now, something important to keep in mind is, yes, deer need water, but during the spring and summer, they're getting 75 to 80% of their water from leafy greens. Now, the thing is as we head into hunting season, leafy greens are not in high supply anymore. And as all of the leaves in the woods start to dry out, this is when those deer really need those water sources. So this is especially where you're going to get those cruising bucks. When they're putting on a lot of miles, they need to stay hydrated. So if you can create a perfect situation between food and bedding in a funnel, in a pinch point that has a water source, it has a mock scrape, this is where those bucks are going to be cruising through. They know they need to stop and get that water once all of that leafy green in the woods dies off, dries off. That's when you're going to get these bucks in front of you. So make sure you get these in the ground. They are a great, great attraction, especially for those cruising bucks as we head deeper and deeper towards winter. So, all right, I'm going to rank this a 2 out of 2 for difficulty. Now, some of you guys that got a mini excavator out there, you're going to call this a 1 out of 3 and call it super easy to install. If you have to dig this into the ground by hand, I'm going to give it an average of a 2 out of 3. If you're in rocky ground, this is going to be a 3 out of 3. So it really depends on the type of ground you have, the size of water hole you're trying to put in. It's all going to be dependent on your specific situation here. Now, amount of attractiveness, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3. Like I said, earlier in the season, not going to be that attractive. As we head later into the season, it's going to be more attractive. So I guess my whole point of this whole thing is it could be a 1 out of 3 difficulty. It could be a 1 out of 3 attractiveness, depending on the type of ground you have, the type of year you're having, if it's a dry season, and so on. So just get them in there, guys. It's not going to hurt. If you got the opportunity, get these in the ground. Put one at your favorite stand. Maybe you only put one on your property because it is too much work. It's too much expense to get it drug out there and whatever. But just get these on your property. They can be very, very useful for you in those dry, late season times. Number 5 on the list is man-made deer trails. So When I was talking earlier how we have the food source, we have the bedding area, you're going to want to connect those with man-made deer trails into your funnel or into your pinch point in the middle. Now, when you create a man-made deer trail, you want it to bend and wind and weave through the woods. It shouldn't just be this big, straight, wide open shooting lane. Deer hate shooting lanes, guys. Stop putting those on your property. We can put them 20 yards in front of you. We don't need to see 150 yards straight through the woods. But when you put these in, try to thicken up that area of the woods as well. So if you can get in there, again, drop some high canopy trees. If you can plug in some shrubs, whatever you can do to thicken these areas of the woods up so that while they're traveling on this man-made deer trail, they are also protected just visually from side cover. Now, this doesn't mean build a wall so that they can't see out and they can't get out. They don't like that either. They want to be able to escape. But if they're at least not walking through a wide open woods because there's a couple trees dropped and you maybe put some brush piles, especially where those big long sight lines, again, we're going back to the anti-shooting lane thing here. So if there are like natural big open sight lines in the woods, get some trees dropped in there. But whatever you can do to thicken up this chunk of woods that travels between the bedding and the food source is going to really make them want to be on that trail. Makes them want to come to that pinch point and forces them right in front of you while you're hunting them. Let's rank these. So for ease of install, I would put these as a 1. Now, attractiveness, I'm going to put this at a 2 out of 3. So once these are on your property, guys, you would be surprised how quickly the deer just start using these trails. I've put these in all over the place in all sorts of biomes, all sorts of habitats. And it could be something as simple as you take a weed whacker and you weed whack a trail through some tall grass. They're going to walk on that trail now through that tall grass. Like, you can literally put them wherever you want by putting these in. So it's not going to drag them again from the next county over to make them walk on these. That's why I'm not putting it at a 3 for attractiveness. But if these deer are already in your area, they're going to walk right on these trails. Number 6. So this is going to be minimize human pressure. So there's a few ways we do this. Make sure you're not out stomping around on your land, looking for scrapes, looking for rubs. Yeah, it's great to go check all of that stuff once we head into the rut and whatever. But guys, they're going to be in your woods. It's great that they're there. We can look for those in the off season. You only want to get on your property during the hunting season to check a cam and hunt. And ideally, you're going to check the cam on the way in to hunt, or you guys are going to have cell cams or Wi-Fi cams where you don't even have to go to the cam. This time of year, the deer are on high alert. You guys have maybe noticed during the summer, you can get really close to them. They're not as skittish, let's say. They're way more at ease. As we head into the hunting season, something snaps in them. You know, they're putting pressure on each other. The predators are amping up to get themselves stocked up for winter as well. And there's just something about putting pressure on deer during the fall that once you do that, they're just gone for weeks and they're not going to come back. And when they do come back, they're come back at night. And as we're trying to avoid those midnight bucks, this is one way you create midnight bucks, is by putting pressure on them. So great. How do we do that? Well, first of all, when you hunt the weather, don't get out there just because you got a day off and it's a horrible weather day. You know, hunt those fronts when they come in. Hunt the backside of horrible weather. So if it was thundering and it was lightning, get out there and hunt the next day. Those deer need to get up and move and feed because they lay down during a storm and take shelter. They don't go up and move and wander around all night when it was thundering and lightning all night. If you have a cold front comes through, they feel that chill in the air. They say, hey, I need to go put on some LBs. I need to go get onto a food source and I need to stock up. I need to keep that furnace in me burning. So these are all great ways to use the weather to hunt. So you're hunting those high probability days of deer movement. Now, the other thing is create good ingress and egress into your stands. And the reason why I split those up is there are certain stands that you want to enter one way because you're coming in there during one part of the day, and you leave a different way because you're leaving out of there at a different part of the day. So understanding deer movement, that deer are going to come to those food plots in the afternoon, and they're going to head to those bedding areas in the morning. Now, they're not going to do this, like I said. In the middle of the night, they go who knows where, so that morning movement's a little bit more difficult to predict, but it will be through this thickest part of the woods. When it is light out, they want to stick to that thick cover as they head back to their bedding area. The most success I've had in all of my years of hunting, I think I'm on my 28th year now, is to hunt those thick lines of cover in the morning. Those deer, wherever they ended up, are going to follow that thick line of cover back to their bedding areas. So make sure you're worried about how you're getting into these stands, how you're getting out of these stands. I have put a stand in a less than ideal location because it was easier to get in and out of it, and I wasn't busting out my entire woods just to get into that stand. Then I created a funnel and I created attractions closer to the stand. So even though the stand can't see off hundreds of yards in every direction, what it does have is deer show up 20 yards in front of it all the time, and I don't have to worry about seeing off into the woods forever in every direction. Sneak in, sneak out, you know, like a hunter, like a predator, and you guys are going to see a lot more success this season. I'm going to put this as a 3 out of 3. It's very hard to do. Now, amount of attractiveness. This is a 3 out of 3 for attractiveness, or I should say lack of deterrent. So if you can sneak onto your property and sneak off of your property and you hunt your property very, very well, you're going to see so many more deer. You guys would not believe how few deer you see because one person went on there and hunted it poorly. So the better you can hunt your property, the more deer you will see. This is probably the best thing you can do on any property, is just hunt it intelligently. And guys, I've seen this on my own properties. We spent a lot of time moving stands, making sure our ingress egresses were working perfectly, and we've seen just an increase, probably exponential increase in success in number of bucks harvested and quality of bucks harvested since we did that. 7. So this one is to get some native vegetation, native species of plants on your property. So this is an all-inclusive part of your property. Every inch of your property you want to try to do this on. So you want to get rid of invasive species. You want to get those good native plantings on your property, and you want to encourage the good habitat things on your property. So this typically means getting rid of high canopy trees, get a lot of that regenerative growth coming up. But if you got big oak trees on your property, you got things that are dropping a lot of food for the deer later in the season, keep those on your property, but get as much of your native habitat working for you on your property as you can. So depending on where you are, this could be a million different species of things to talk about here, but you ideally want to have those soft shrubs, so things like tag alder, things like red osier dogwood. Those are the types of things that deer are going to feed on in the winter. So you really want to get them through the winter so that they are still alive and well come into the spring. Plus with those bucks, the better nutrition they have all winter, the quicker they can start putting that spring nutrition into antler growth instead of just having to replace all the body weight they lost all winter. This, guys, is also why in the snow belt in the far north, you aren't seeing these monster corn-fed southern bucks, because they spend so much of their spring just regaining body weight that they lost all winter, and then they go into antler growth. So having a good food plot program and all of that's going to really help that nutrition and help them build antlers sooner in the spring, which makes them bigger in the fall. But yeah, make sure you guys can get out there and get your natural habitat doing what it needs to do for you. So ranking this, it's a 3 out of 3 for difficulty. It's also a 3 out of 3 for attractiveness. If you have the best property in the area, you are going to have all of the wildlife in the area coming to your property. So this is something that I kind of look at like a slow burn. I am not getting out there in a weekend trying to overhaul my entire property. But while I'm out there, maybe I cut down one of these subordinate trees. Maybe I get one of these less desirable trees out of here. Maybe I open up an area a little bit better. Maybe I cut some trees away from a big oak so it can really get all of the sunlight surrounding it and it can really be the best version of itself. So guys, just get out there, help improve your properties overall, and if your property overall is improved, your hunt and your habitat's going to be improved as well. So all right, if you guys feel like you got some value out of this video, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and if you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one. Otherwise, go check out this one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.